Well, this storm is really starting to hit its mature phase right now. It's amazing to think that this storm is over 150 miles off to our east. Well, this storm is really starting to hit its mature phase right now. It's amazing to think that this storm is over 150 miles off to our east. Let's follow me, take a look here. We're seeing a lot of spray coming up along the coastline here in Rockport. We've had quite some very large waves coming up and lapping right here at the edge of the land here. We're watching these waves kind of crashing up and repeatedly bringing spray up here. That was not the case just about an hour ago. The wind has really started to kick up as well. And, you know, we're looking at gusts over maybe 40, 45 miles per hour at this point. It looks like these are the worst of the winds that we've had here all morning long and toward the midday, so it's actually getting a little bit worse here. The other ingredient here is also the heavy snow squalls that continue to affect the area. We've been at times seeing very little in the way of precipitation, but right now we're actually in one of those squalls, and this is kind of the western periphery of the storm that's offshore. These snow squalls coming in like teeth on a saw blade, and they continue to kind of lash at Cape Ann. So we're going to be in and out of these snow squalls here for at least the next couple of hours until this storm slowly starts to limp off to the east. But in the meantime, again, winds gusting over 40 miles per hour now. We've got heavy surf, high tide coming in this hour. Minor coastal flooding is expected once that high tide goes down. Give it about 2 hours, and the coastal flooding threat should tend to wane. But again, the coastal flood warning was dropped just a little while ago. Coastal flood advisories remaining in effect. Live in Rockport.
With the brunt of the storm pushed out over the ocean, the Coast Guard warns that wind, waves, and currents make conditions unsafe for mariners. The howling northwest wind pushing against waves, and to the delight of surfers, whipping them up as they come ashore.
It's a little scary when the conditions are this big, but it's still fun. You can get some good waves.
Those same waves crashing against seawalls up and down the coast, peaking at high tide just before 1 o'clock this afternoon. Fortunately, no major erosion issues, no flooding in low-lying marsh areas, but the windswept waves providing a spectacle for visitors.
But you got to be careful down along the seawall. The waves come splashing over, and they bring with it a lot of debris, a lot of rocks can come flying over, and it can be dangerous.
While there are no splashover problems to speak of, coastal routes and anyone venturing too near are drenched at times.
It just went right over our head, and we got soaking wet, but we just laughed and enjoyed it.
The ocean, the waves, it's beautiful, it's crazy, it's amazing. You know, come out here, get wet, take some pictures. I love it.
Lots of people off work and school finding that by afternoon the roads were clear enough to venture out, and the impact on the coast was too much to miss.
It's very windy and cold.
But pretty amazing. Do you want to go for a swim?
No.
I love the ocean, and I heard the waves were huge, so I wanted to check it out.
Well, the Coast Guard continues that warning tonight. The wind is still really howling here. And they warn whether it be commercial fishermen or surfers that even once it's left the area, the winds, the currents, and those waves will persist at sea.
Just days after the biggest storm of the season dumped up to 19 inches of snow on the region, a fluffy snow blanketed parts of the Northeast on Monday. Winter storm warnings were in effect from upstate New York to Maine. Blizzard conditions and up to 2 feet of snow were possible. Nearly all flights in and out of the airport in Manchester, New Hampshire have been canceled. Snow totals in Maine included 17 inches in Saco and 16 inches in Portland. Scattered power outages were reported overnight. Monday's forecast of strong winds and coastal flooding continued to be a concern. Residents in New Hampshire and Maine were urged by state officials to stay off the roads in an effort to avoid whiteout conditions. A major nor'easter slammed into northern New York and New England on Sunday. This came days after another storm blasted towns and cities across the Northeast. More than a foot of snow is expected from New York to Maine. Some parts of New England may see up to 2 feet of snow. Blizzard-like conditions and slick roads caused several accidents and drivers to slide off the highway. The hazardous conditions canceled hundreds of flights into and out of many major Northeast airports.
Drone's view of a creek in Santa Clarita's Plaza Rita Canyon. The creek intersects with a road and it became a raging river when it rained. And with another storm on the way, CBS 2's Randy Page spoke with the neighbors who want the city to fix the problem.
The look on this little girl's face tells part of the story. The view from our news helicopter tells the rest. It was just this past Saturday when a torrential rainstorm turned a small creek into a treacherous river-sized current, trapping father and daughter on the roof of their car, then this dramatic rescue. And another one involving this car as well.
Today, people who live in this neighborhood are asking, what happens when the rain comes this weekend and what happens after that? Because they say this isn't the first time cars have been trapped in this wash. It's been happening here for years. And the question is, what can be done about this and who's going to pay for it?
We've got a statement from the fire department saying that they can no longer get emergency vehicles in here.
John Thomas has lived here since 1977. He says many of his neighbors are in their 70s and 80s.
We've got one woman that's waiting for a lung transplant. So the emergency aspect of it is critical.
Here's the view from our drone. Thomas says it could be a matter of life and death.
You can't get in, why, it's going to be a coroner coming in at a later time.
We look at it as an adventure.
Connie Flores Reisbeck says the city of Santa Clarita told them the road is private, so it's not the city's responsibility to keep the road from washing out. In a written statement, a city spokesperson says, in part, we plan on meeting with residents in the future to discuss mutual solutions. And in the meantime,
stay the heck away from here.
In Santa Clarita, Randy Page.
A cold front dumping on the islands as it sweeps through the state, causing damage and even injuries. A large tent collapsed this morning at Kapi'olani Community College during an educational event put on by the DOE. 3 minors were injured. The rain was extremely heavy, coming down at a rate of 2 to 3 inches per hour in some areas, and there were gusty winds, which brought the tent down. Elisa Revelo was at KCC and has details on the video you'll see only on 2. Elisa?
Kathy, the KCC campus was full of Honolulu District students attending a State Department of Education science fair. It was supposed to be a day to celebrate the students' accomplishments, but it was unexpectedly cut short.
Please leave the tent area and move towards the building.
But just seconds after that warning, the tent collapsed.
I ran fast into the cafeteria because I was scared.
You can see people scrambling for cover, chairs and poles scattered across the KCC Great Lawn.
As we were noticing the wind come through and then the rain came through, we hear all the students were screaming like it was a hurricane.
Students, teachers, and parents were underneath the tent when it fell. Student Jacqueline Nguyen was one of them.
Suddenly, just like rain came up and pouring and stuff. But after that, oh my gosh, there was like rain coming through and it felt like a hurricane. I was looking back, it just swang and then it fell off like that.
We saw poles coming up and we started moving kids out, and before we could get everybody out, it collapsed on everybody.
When I got to the scene, I saw one student being carried into an ambulance. 3 minors were taken to the hospital, but no serious injuries were reported. The wind also toppled trees and scattered debris around campus. Witnesses described what happened as a freak accident.
Get out of the tent. Get into shelter. That's what I was thinking.
Making sure that everybody is safe. That was our first concern.
A science show and the award ceremony were set to take place under the tent. KCC closed the campus immediately after for safety. The Department of Education tells us staff acted quickly in calling for assistance to ensure that students were not seriously hurt. As for the science fair, we're told judges will reconvene at another time to finish looking at the projects.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Monday night. And we begin with the scene playing out at America's tallest dam, part of a key spillway cratering. A second spillway in trouble, too. And tonight, with more rain on the way, nearly 200,000 people evacuated. Here is the first spillway we reported on last week here. You can see the waters raging right over the side of the spillway, underneath that growing crater. Emergency crews can't shut off the water because levels at that dam are already at dangerous highs. With that spillway and now another one in trouble, the evacuations. Many were given just an hour's warning, some even less. ABC's Kana Whitworth is on the scene tonight.
This is the image that started the alarm. Water rushing over a giant, gaping hole. Now the race to reroute the water causing bigger problems. The damage and erosion so severe, emergency officials feared the worst. If the area doesn't hold, a giant wall of water could spill into the surrounding residential areas.
Just 7 miles downstream from the dam in the city of Oroville, this is the Feather River, already swelling over its banks. If that spillway fails, 1 million more gallons of water every second would enter this river.
Nearly 200,000 people told to evacuate.
Been advised we need to expand the evacuation area.
The alerts coming in by phone and text. This Oroville resident said he had 5 minutes to leave.
Our phone started going off and we just immediately loaded up the kids and took off.
Yeah. Dishes left on the table at this abandoned Denny's. Those fleeing stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic for hours. Gas stations overwhelmed.
And I'm scared because I've never been in anything like this before.
Motorists tweeting photos and videos of their ordeal through the night.
I've been stuck in this spot for 20 minutes now. I ain't going nowhere.
The problem all stemming from the Oroville Dam in Northern California, now at record levels and in danger of spilling over after a series of storms. At 770 feet high, the dam is America's tallest. It releases water from Lake Oroville through a spillway. The problem started last Tuesday when a massive hole developed in the spillway's concrete base, forcing engineers Saturday to allow water over this wall into the adjacent emergency spillway. Here are those dramatic images of the water going over the wall for the first time since the dam opened in 1968, leading to that severe and dangerous erosion.
Right behind me, these are the giant bags that they're filling up with rocks to drop into that hole. And when you look, those bags are about 4 feet tall.
Tonight, helicopters lifting these giant bags that they hope will stop the erosion. They've also increased the flow of water at the main spillway, with that giant hole to take the pressure off the second emergency spillway. More than one Olympic swimming pool of water rushing through every single second. Officials say it's working, but this image shows how close the dam is to the town of Oroville, which tonight is a ghost town. Many preparing to spend a second night at shelters, sleeping on cots, and among those waiting to return home, 18-year-old April Torlone.
It was just beyond crazy seeing that Yuba City changed in a matter of minutes.
So much concern tonight, and Kana is with us live. Kana, concerns with the first spillway in that crater, then the second spillway right next to it over the weekend, and major problems there as well. But tonight, on the eve of more rain coming, some progress to report?
David, officials are not able to lift those evacuation orders despite the fact that those lake levels have actually fallen a little bit and there's no more water going over that second emergency spillway. They're just using the first one that initially caused some problems. But we do have more rain in the forecast. So, David, they are being extra cautious out here.